Okay, so hopefully I can finish this video without interruptions. I just woke up at like 2:30, 2 p.m. I'm still getting up. I pulled a 10-hour shift last night, working on a floor at a retail store, and it's like, getting up, getting down, being on the floor all day, all night, and it was all full of glue, so I wore pants that already had glue stains, so that's not the end of the world on that. And so I check my comments in my stuff, and I'm at the point where my channel's small enough, I try to answer most of the comments most of the time. But there's been a lot of comments in one of the videos I did on the Scoop on Harbor Freight solar stuff, and that was all, I think I posted that in 2013. The 2011 to 2013, I was buying a lot of this solar equipment. I was really getting into the off-grid stuff. I did my first off-grid trailer project. I did a couple of those things, and then I started working on the cabin. And 2014, I did the most recent off-grid trailer project. I'm gathering components to do another one. The semi-mobile arrays it works with my lifestyle situation, and in the course of building all this stuff, I sampled a lot of equipment from a lot of different suppliers. I of course started out just going down to the Harbor Freight store, using coupons, getting that, and figuring out I needed something better. That goes to what I was talking about with scaling your solar stuff to your needs and your situation, which is going to take somebody with some experience. There's some ways that we can kind of survey somebody's lifestyle and house using the little kilowatt meters, and figure out where somebody's usage curve is and what's going on with off-grid. Now, with on-grid living, that's just, you kind of look at the electric bills and then figure out what somebody's usage is, maybe a little bit seasonally, and usually the installers get all that figured out. And of course they're also going to run the roof and the roof shape through a computer program which shows how much panel space, what's practical up there, what somebody wants to spend. But when we're looking at an off-grid system, we need to scale the size of the controller, the type of panels, the voltage, the size of the battery bank, and the size of the inverter. And those situations all vary according to somebody's, what they need, what they can afford, what they expect to accomplish with the system. And none of those answers are very easy for somebody with very little experience, because there's a lot of guys who publish some books on electrical theory and solar theory, and they own one or two systems, or they've built or installed the same system 20 times. That's not the same as having done different scales of different systems. And if you look in my videos, I've got stuff from the big solar one that was pointable. I've helped out on home type installation stuff, and of course the micro stuff, the backpack stuff, the Ansar Palace, which was a micro camper with the solar on that. Sometimes we can mix new and used components. On the Ansar Palace, he had gotten some deals on used panels. It was fair, fair deals on used panels. So a lot of people are commenting with links to whatever their favorite seller is. Okay, I'm going to explain where to buy your stuff. You want to buy it as locally as you can, as long as you're not getting ripped off. Okay, shop eBay, shop Amazon, shop some of the specialized websites, and expect that, if you're going to pay a 20% markup locally, and that would include, some fudge factor for sales tax, because sometimes you're going to pay sales tax anyway on the Amazon guys and the eBay guys now. So a little fudge factor on sales tax at 20%, that's kind of pushing it. At 10%, I would say go ahead and buy locally. I have, for example, there's a local seller here who sells the DM 158 watt solar panels for about $200 each. If I buy a pallet of those, I can get them for about 140. Okay, 140, 150-ish, depending on how we handle the shipping. And if I buy them from Amazon, I pay about $185 each. So it's $15 extra to buy them locally. I'm not going to go through that much trouble unless I'm buying enough panels that it's worth staying home from work a day, waiting for the truck, and hoping that they show up on a day. I'm just going to go down and buy the stuff locally. As far as he's concerned with his investment, as long as he has a sufficient turnover with whatever loans or whatever funding he has going on, it makes sense to him. Now, when it comes to charge controllers, which are smaller, more compact, and easier to ship, then he doesn't stock a lot. He'll stock some, but he's not going to stock like the $700 or $800 ones, where his price difference of $15-20, it's not worth the profit to him necessarily on that. But if he's got people buying those every week, he might have one in stock. And when you're talking about the panels, and a lot of people are recommending like Sun Solar out of Florida, which has some of the lowest prices in the country, and that's because they also sell throughout the Caribbean. And those are areas with pretty predictable sunlight every day. In the Pacific Northwest, the sunlight is very seasonal. But we also have to understand, even up in Canada, the very long summers, okay, when it doesn't get dark in the summer, you've got a lot of solar power, okay. The other thing about Canada, and the Canadian viewers and Canadian buyers or people who might want to look at Canadian market stuff, is that the housings and the hardware on all of that stuff tends to be a little bit heavier duty in order to survive those winters up in Canada. So it's a little bit tougher equipment. A lot of times it's still made in China. It's still got the same cells. It's got the same specifications. But usually if it's Canadian stuff, it's a little tougher because Canadians are a bunch of prickly little snobs who will nail you on a warranty repair or a legalistic thing, and nobody wants to have to deal with product returns and warranty repairs. So they're going to make it a little tougher to begin with and crack the whip on quality control if they're dealing with Canadian customers. That's been the situation with General Motors too. If you get a Canadian-made General Motors car, they're usually a little pricklier on the quality control for that car, but you're getting sometimes you're getting less specification for the money. It depends a little bit. The situation with specifications is that new sellers on the market who are trying to be really competitive, what they'll do is they'll kind of over-spec their stuff, they'll overstate it. I really like these net meter solar charge controllers. This one burned, and it burned on a 400 watt system. The reason it burned on a 400 watt system was the charge controller was a little bit cheerfully optimistic on what they spec the charge controller, while the panel manufacturer was pessimistic on how they spec the panels. So the panels were actually pushing about 120, 130 watts each when they're brand new. And then once they get that kind of break-in period in some strong sunlight, they kind of break down to 100 watts. The problem is that if they were putting very cheerful, optimistic specifications on the panels and they broke down a little bit after a couple of years, somebody's going to be crying for warranty repair. And when they cry for warranty repair, depending on state municipal laws and what their contract was with the installer, they're crying for a warranty repair with something where installing them may cost just as much as the panels, and it's a big hassle. So they tend to be a little bit pessimistic on ratings for the panels. That's also where I've met some real pro installers who mainly do grid tie stuff, but had done some off-grid stuff like over in Africa. And the guy said, oh yeah, you burn charge controllers out all the time. Do charge controllers burn out? Yeah, but usually that number one reason is that the panels were kind of pessimistically rated, the charge controllers optimistically rated, and that's where you get burned stuff. When I use these net meter charge controllers on something like older panels, used panels, broken in stuff, or something where maybe it's only a 200 watt system, the charge controller never has a problem. I think these things go up to about 350. You start getting up into that 400, it's kind of borderline. If you hit 500, you're going to roast it. when you're buying the equipment, I'll reiterate, you want to buy as locally as you can, as long as the price isn't gouging you, and that's because you're going to have shipping charges on this stuff. And it's always a little bit better to have a walk-in warranty situation, but when you look at the product reviews out there and who stays on the market, usually, I mean, it's dealt with, okay? Shit hit the fan type situations where it may be the last equipment you ever own. Obviously, that's going to vary a little bit, but if you're going to be able to mail something back, this is going to get mailed back on warranty, then whether you mail something back or drive, sometimes it's easier for me to mail stuff than it is to drive to the other side of town and fight through traffic. But when you're looking at the panels, the cable reels, some of the other equipment, batteries you have to buy locally. Okay, batteries you buy at a local battery shop. Sometimes the auto parts stores are good for that. Home Depot's and Lowe's are really good for that because they'll do the veteran discount on the batteries, and 10% can matter. If you want a road trip to a state without sales tax, that matters. Okay, but batteries are heavy, so you have a truck or an SUV or cargo trailer or something, you're going to be carrying enough batteries in. And those are all questions which I'm glad to answer in the comment section of the videos. Every once in a while I might just make a video and answer somebody's question. And so with regards to whether or not I would endorse any particular sellers, that varies according to where you're at. Sun Solar, I think, is a perfectly good seller. It's just they're too far away for me to economically do business with. Real Goods is kind of a neato company. Their prices are astronomical, and I would, maybe take classes. I've gone there and toured their place, and I'll always buy something to be polite. But for their real equipment, I don't think they even try to be price competitive. And they, but it's kind of a neat thing. But they also, they're kind of selling you on a culture situation, which I'm not hostile toward. But in other respects, when I kind of deal with the, white Hindu type culture, they tend to get judgmental of me. So that's kind of where I'm, I kind of, you deal with these things for specific reasons. Anyway, I'm going to do another video where I address scaling solar power systems.